Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Bone. Today we're stepping into a unique and high-stakes environment, the world of military athletic training. Our guest is MacKenzie Heck, a certified athletic trainer who has served military personnel through the Holistic Health and Fitness Program, H2F. It helps optimize performance, prevent injury, and keeps service members mission ready. MacKenzie has navigated the complexities of working within the military system, including third-party contracts and logistical hurdles. While still delivering exceptional care, in this episode, we'll explore what it takes to be a clinician in this unique setting, the challenges she's faced, and the lessons she's learned along the way. So welcome to the show, MacKenzie.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So MacKenzie, for listeners who may not know you, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a military athletic trainer?
For sure. Currently I'm living in Columbia, South Carolina, but I grew up just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in Gwinnett County, and that's kind of where I got my start in athletic training as a high schooler. So I kind of came up through the high school athletic training student aid type deal. I went to a big high school in Gwinnett County. It's a very athletically competitive area. And I had a great athletic trainer at my high school, Doug Wardy, and he's awesome. He was by himself at a 7A high school for about 10 years before he got any help. So I was relied on a lot once he found out I was interested. And I don't know, I went out for practice for a week for a sports medicine class that was not anything close to I think what sports medicine classes are now for high schoolers. But I told him, I was like, I think I really like this. This is really fun. Can I stay on for the rest of the season? And then that was my sophomore year of high school. Stayed on till I was a senior. I was kind of dug in on athletic training at that point. So I was like, that's what I'm going to school for. That's what I want to do with my career. And I mean, I think everyone kind of starts out wanting to be okay, I want to do pro sports or collegiate sports or whatever. And I mean, I was kind of never dug in on a certain spot, I guess. But I had looked at College of Charleston, go to school there. I had some obsession with South Carolina. I think I was I'll go to school by the beach. It'll be so fun and whatever. And then my senior year of high school, I toured the University of South Carolina, fell in love with it, found out their athletic training program was excellent. And their program was just super supportive of their students. They had a lot to offer as a program. And I felt like that was going to be the best fit for me. It wasn't super far from home. My mom had a 6-hour cone of safety for me so she could drive to me if something happened. But South Carolina was the best pick for me. I loved my time there as a student. I felt like the faculty and staff really cared for us, even when, it was challenging. I mean, as a student, I was in an undergrad program, so I wasn't a master's entry level degree. So I came out of they're one of the last 2 cohorts of undergrad degrees at South Carolina for to be an athletic trainer. And I felt like we just got really good exposure clinically for 3 years. The faculty was really supportive, was very connected within the athletic training world. And wherever you wanted to go, you could get, essentially. I ended up in Columbia right after I graduated. At Columbia International University for about a year-ish until COVID started, which was kind of a wrench in my first year professionally. That's not something they prepare you for in school, and how to navigate a pandemic and what having a job looks like. And I was furloughed. It kind of gave me 3 months to think about, is this really for me or not? Do I want to keep going? Because my time there at CIU was definitely challenging. I had to learn a lot really fast. And then I was like, I think I want to do this. I don't want to leave this profession like bitter or without really giving another like true try. I ended up at a local high school through an outreach program at Prisma Health, which is a big health conglomerate here in Columbia, or the state of South Carolina really now. But ended up there, then got an opportunity to move close to the beach, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I was at Carolina Forest High School for 2 years. Went down there to be an assistant, became the head within a month. That was like a whole roller coaster. I was 25 and I was like, this is one of the largest schools in the state. And I'm in charge of all these kids. And now staff too. I was the head athletic trainer. There were 2 assistants or associate athletic trainers. And that was a huge learning curve for me. I mean, I was technically the youngest and I had the least amount of education and I was in charge. And I was like, well, this is a huge learning thing for me. Learned a lot of lessons in that time. And it was just really I had a really good time down there. If I could have moved that school probably up to Columbia, I would have loved to do it. That's what I told my principal, athletic director, coworkers, coaches. I was like, if I could move this school, I would do it, but I can't. I really just missed Columbia, miss being by my family, miss being with my church community that I have here. That's really important to me. And really just ask God. I don't know how I'm going to get back to Columbia or what I'm going to do, but I know in June 2023, moving back to Columbia. I don't know what a job looks like, but you're going to show me where I need to go. And honestly, Fort Jackson kind of just landed in my lap a little bit. I was on LinkedIn, everyone's favorite professional website. And I mean, at 20, I think I was 27 at the time. And I was like, who finds jobs on LinkedIn? Like, I don't ever use this thing, like, whatever. And I found it on there and I was like, oh, this could be interesting. Like, I actually had heard a presentation from athletic trainers at Fort Jackson when I was in school at South Carolina. And they were like, kind of gave the rundown of what, I'll tell you what our day to day is, but they're like, yeah, we go in at, 5 a.m., we do sit call and, we're usually done with work by 1 or 2 p.m. And I was like, that's a crazy day. Like as a college kid, I was like waking up at 4. I'm like, I did that for spring football. And I was like, that's horrible. I was like, I don't know if that's going to be ever for me. But so I applied and, they were looking to fill positions. H2F was really taken off in 2023 as far as really trying to fill spots. Fort Jackson had already had athletic training positions there prior to H2F even existing. They're kind of part of the reason why H2F exists. So it was interesting, a lot of people who have been working here at Fort Jackson were athletic trainers prior to H2F. So they have a lot of background experience and I've learned a lot of, what they were dealing with before H2F got there and in that transition. So I was kind of in that transition period that was like, learning from people who had been there and then being like the new kid on the block of like, I'm just here, coming in on this H2F wave and really seeing how heavy, H2F was launching within the Army. And so, yeah, I mean, I got into it and, interviewed, they hired me and had a job that started at the end of June of 2023. And I was like, I'll receive a blessing. But yeah, that's really where I've been at. And I have enjoyed it a lot going back. So took a little hiatus for a minute. But I am going back there because I just genuinely really enjoyed what I get to do there. I have no like bitter taste in my mouth about high schools. I think you just find the things that you really enjoy within our profession. And like, those are the things you got to go after. Even if there's some, things you might have to like let go and not let frustrate you as much. And just really get to enjoy what you do and the people that you serve. And know that, your passion in that, you may not see the payoff of that immediately. But knowing that down the road, it's going to have a big impact is really important to me. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of talked about how there's been a transition to this H2F structure. Can you explain the difference between what athletic training was before this program was really implemented?
Yeah, so to a degree, I can, I guess, explain it. So prior to H2F being at Fort Jackson, I can speak to them mainly just because that's where
Mm-hmm.
I'm working. But before I was there, they were under different contractors, and they were basically, I think they were a local kind of situation where Fort Jackson was really footing the bill for athletic trainers at Fort Jackson. One of my professors at University of South Carolina, Dr. Jim Mensch, he introduced athletic trainers to Fort Jackson back in 2008. GAs were over there working 20 hours a week doing sit call, helping trainees, mostly trainees during that sick call period where we are evaluating them for any type of injury they may be dealing with, trying to educate them on stretching. And I can go deeper into that later, but he kind of started that over there, and they did a research study, and basically they showed the cost savings was almost like $20 million, having athletic trainers within units there. And they were very hesitant at first to have athletic trainers there. And they were like, they won't, it won't make a difference. Like, the same old from different leadership within the Army, and within MedCom and just normal leadership structure. And they proved them wrong essentially. And so then I think after a year, they then hired full-time staff for on Fort Jackson. So from that point, they were, under different contractors. I mean, that's the thing with the government contracting. I mean, there's rebids, every how many ever years you have your contract for, and then there's, that whole process, which is not super fun. So they've been under a number of different contractors over the past 15 or so years. And then when H2F kind of came around, they kind of absorbed those positions, so that those positions became a part of H2F and funded by Big Army instead of the local Fort Jackson funding that. And so they used to be a part of MedCom, and then they got moved over to TRADOC, so that changes your leadership structure and who's kind of over you, supervising you, and what you're required to do. When they were under MedCom, as contractors under MedCom, they had a quota for patients they had to see every day. Excuse me. And sometimes that's difficult because, on the whole, in a basic combat training cycle of 10 weeks, and every week is not the same. The first 3 weeks are usually quite busy, just because these kids have never done anything this physical. It's stressful. They are really trying to adjust. Some of them have never ran, 15 feet. So they are just struggling, never stretched in their life, don't know how to do that, don't know what that means, don't know what to stretch, how to stretch, all that. And so you're seeing a lot of people, you're starting to see a lot of overuse and stress injuries in week 4 and 5. And then they're starting to go on their last few weeks where, they're in the field, they're on the range, they're, getting into their final training exercise. But some of those weeks are pretty dry. You're not seeing 12 patients a day. And sometimes you're seeing 15, 20 patients a day because you just got a lot of volume. So it kind of pans out over that 10 weeks. But, it was really difficult for them to meet that quota. They would have to kind of go really which is not a bad thing in and of itself, but try to make those encounters happen, but out in the field. And it wasn't necessarily an evaluation or anything like that. So when they moved over to TRADOC, I think it made it a little bit easier because they didn't have to meet a patient quota daily, which was really helpful. It gave them some more freedom. Because the other part of our job is providing education. We'll go do stretch briefs. We'll go, teach them. I mean, my thing that I did was I did running shoe approvals. So if they brought their personal running shoes, I would approve them if they were structurally good and teach them what a good running shoe should look like and perform for them so that they're, helping themselves prevent injury. So that's kind of where it transitioned, I guess. And then, all the battalions weren't necessarily working together within a brigade. They were kind of siloed. So when H2F came in, it kind of made it more of a team aspect, and you're working with all the other athletic trainers a lot more, communicating what you're doing, trying to meet, show what you're doing a little bit better as far as data goes, and collecting data points and whatnot. And then with H2F, they, every battalion has a strength and conditioning coach, at least one. And that was a really interesting thing for me, to have somebody directly to work with, because my strength and conditioning coach, Nick, he is awesome. We worked really well together. I had another guy, his name was Jacob May, and he moved on to something else, and he's still kind of in a tactical field. He works for City of Columbia Police now, but, working in tandem with them was really helpful just because, they're trying to help the drill sergeants and, they would sometimes help with the trainees. And like, it was really helpful to kind of symbiotically have a good relationship of like, hey, like, what have you been noticing? Like, how can we help the cadre here? How can we help the trainees here? But also having the resources up at, we call the SPARC, the Soldier Performance Readiness Center, having nutritionists, dietitians, cognitive specialists, physical therapists who is over the athletic trainers for the most part, is looking over us, Josh, and he's awesome. He's a GS position. But just having a lot of people to work in tandem with has been super cool at this level of, it may look different than what I think a force comm looks like, which is more of an active unit. They have a little bit more flexibility and they're not as held to a training schedule, I think, as we are. But it definitely was interesting and a hard transition a little bit for some people, because I think going from working in silos to really having to work as a team was just different. But I think at the end of the day, it served everyone pretty well, and just relationships have gotten a lot better, and we're able to care for cadre and trainees a lot better.
Yeah. So you talked about what makes up the H2F team. You talked a little bit about how you guys do a lot of education as athletic trainers. What other responsibilities do you guys have within that team, since there are established physical therapists? And I think there's EMTs that respond in field to injuries and stuff, or do you guys do that technically?
So I guess so. Our responsibility there is it just kind of depends. EMTs are on post, and will do respond to emergencies on Fort Jackson. Although their response time and response capabilities sometimes can just be constrained by the amount of people and their staffing. I mean, at one point, like last summer or this past summer, I think we had like one one EMS truck like on post because all the other ones were getting managed or whatever. They were like doing their in-service for them, and I was like, this is probably the worst time for the staff, and everyone knew that. Everyone was like, it's literally the hot of summer and there's only like one EMS truck. That's not good. So yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily manage like the heat injuries. We're not usually on site for those. If we're there, if at a training event, like we can definitely help aid that, but the drill sergeants are trained in how to do that, and they are held to a standard of how that goes based on their training, and there's a specific procedure that they have to follow because I mean, it's just like, the EAPs that we have, if we're not following that and we're not executing that to the level of, what we have planned, if they go outside of that and something happens, that's not good, they'll go back and be like, well, we didn't do this way and, whatever. So they're usually on the ground responding, but if I'm there at a training event, I can respond to it. I've had kids at the obstacle course. I'll have drill sergeants call me, hey, I think they might have broke something, but it's not sideways. Can you come look at them before we either call EMS or take them up to the troop medical clinic or the PMC? And I'll do that because it's easy to drive out to those obstacle courses. I can get to those places pretty easily. And then, yeah, I mean, if they're out in the field, usually if stuff like that happens, like they'll call me for that. But if it's an obvious emergency, I mean, they're activating their standard operating procedures to execute that. So.
Gotcha.
And then I guess the physical therapist, like we see our cadre and we will do like the initial evaluation. And then sometimes, we'll start some rehab and do stuff with them. But if it's something that we need, another look at, or they need some more just further evaluation, we'll send them up to the PT at the SPARC so that they can, order imaging and stuff for them, because we can't do that yet. And so that's kind of when we kind of punt those up to the PT.
Okay. So it sounds like it's somewhat close to traditional athletic training. Is there anything that's really, really different, I guess?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, the longer I've been in it, I'm like, I mean, it's really the same. It just looks, I mean, I guess the biggest difference when I walked into it is you're just not dealing with as much um, like on-site acute injury care as you probably are used to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just that's the biggest difference is you're not standing at a game like waiting for something to happen necessarily. I mean, I stand at obstacle courses and wait for things to happen. So uh, that's the extent. So it's not like you're really watching anything like necessarily. I mean, watching obstacle courses can be quite funny, if I'm being honest. But I mean, it's not like watching a game or anything like that. And I'm not doing um, really any like super crazy like emergency care at this point. I haven't done that at this point, but I also, we haven't had anything like that happen yet, where we've had to run like a true like EAP where we're having to revive somebody,
Yeah.
which I'm grateful for. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that would probably be the biggest difference is, it just looks different than I guess what everyone else does on a day to day. But I mean, it's same makeup stuff. I mean, like the kids you're seeing, I say kids, but they're anywhere from 18 to 45. I mean, you've got a huge age range of people, all different types of levels of athletic experience, and physical activity levels coming in. So I guess that would be the biggest difference. I wasn't really working with people who were much older and trying to do something very active. And I would say too, I mean, there's people coming from all over the world to join the Army, because they will get nationalized becoming a part of any military branch. But that has been challenging sometimes because they don't quite have their English perfect yet, which is okay. But it can make it challenging when I'm trying to do an evaluation and I'm like, I need you to have somebody who speaks your language, who speaks better English so that I can understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously with their permission to, be a part of their evaluation, and, they understand that like I can't understand them without that person. So, I've used Google, Translate before. That kind of works, but, it's hard. Some of the stuff, tests we do and trying to explain them like I would a English speaking patient. Hey, like this is what's going on. This is, what we can expect, and really trying to give them the full idea of what we're dealing with. That sometimes is definitely very different than traditional athletic training, I think, in that respect.
Yeah, definitely. So with the H2F program, it's through a third-party contractor with the military.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what the hiccup was this past summer on what happened with the contracts, how it affected athletic training, and maybe what the outlook looks like right now?
Yeah. So I'll preface this with all of this is public knowledge. So this is just my purview of how it kind of trickled down. So this was back in April, beginning of April. I had been seeing whispers on Facebook, the military athletic trainers group, whatever that's on there, and like every few months or so there'll be like rumors and people like, I think I heard something, and it's like, okay, whatever. There's been no like communication from anybody about it. And then like it was like a Monday or Tuesday morning, I think it was Monday morning, and like I saw this post and it was like they're cutting all the athletic trainers in H2F and something like that. And I was like, wait, that's a crazy statement to make. And then no, somebody put in the comments, they put the screenshot that went around that everyone has seen. It's been on LinkedIn, it's been everywhere, of the leaked bluff email to from General Mingus saying they were cutting all the athletic trainers. Our contractor had no idea about this. Like literally they were caught off guard by this announcement / not announcement, like leak essentially. And I mean, reading that you're going to lose your job in September and April is like still very disheartening. It was really a gut punch when they confirmed that was happening. Our contractor confirmed that within like 2 days. They had like emailed us. They were like, hey, I've seen this going around. We're trying to confirm this. This has not come down from the contracting office. we're working, like we were not made aware of this before this was released, essentially, which it wasn't officially released, which is disappointing to a degree. I can see why somebody would want to maybe share that with the athletic trainers at their installation to give them a good heads up, but also it's like our contractor would let us know, like, but they just hadn't even got the information. So it was definitely really tough. It took me a few weeks to really like absorb that like they were going to get rid of 160 people in one fell swoop. I mean, that's, they're one of the biggest employers of athletic trainers collectively in the United States right now. That's a lot of people within our profession. And, a lot of people had relocated in the past year or two, more than once. Because the first year I was working with H2F, in 2024, I was going to get let go because they cut positions within H2F, so they reduced the numbers per each brigade, and I was going to get let go, but then somebody else left, so I got to stay. So they had reduced our force already, so in 2025, when they were like, we're cutting everybody, I was like, this makes no sense. And then they were in the email, it said they were going to replace us with strength and conditioning coaches. And so then everyone felt disrespected because they were like, oh, they really don't know what we do and like the impact that we have and like what our job actually is. And so that was really tough. I was like, okay, so all this like data that we're like pushing up and like the numbers that we're seeing like monthly that we're reporting, like where is that going? And like who is standing in the gap for us to explain what we really do? And, I think that was like really frustrating for me because I was like, literally, I mean, in the peak of a basic training cycle, I'm seeing 300 to 400 patients a month. Like, I'm like, that's a lot of people. And, I'm like, I don't know if, and I'm like, that's just me and my battalion. That's not across the whole installation. So it's like, easily we could be seeing 2,000 people a month, if that, if not more, across all of Fort Jackson in a month. So I'm like, I just don't understand where this is coming from. Our contractor was scrambling to figure out answers for us, like they just were like, I mean, I felt bad for them because it's like they just didn't even know that was coming at all. And then they had to come on the back end of that and be like, we have no answers for you right now, really, on severance packages, on like any of the things that, people were asking. And so that was also frustrating because you're like, okay, well, like, I don't even know what this looks like on the other side of it. And then, you're also coming into a season where it's almost summertime and it's, a good time for athletic trainers to look for jobs. And so, everyone's asking, well, like, do I go get another job or do we wait it out? And, they were transparent with us and they were like, we know this is a good season for you guys to get jobs. So if that is something that is best for you, then like, please, like we will, you'll get a good reference, like all the things. But yeah, so then the NATA really did step up. I will say that I felt very supported. And I can say that with like a lot of integrity because I feel like before I was like, well, what do they do? And I think a lot of people have been there, and I do, I can appreciate, that from them, especially in the traditional setting where, I feel like sometimes you probably could feel very unsupported, in the fact of, what are they doing to advocate for athletic trainers in the traditional setting, and helping, increase our respect and our, salary is what most people are looking for. And I was like, I felt very supported. I think it's Dana Kukendall, who is our government affairs representative for NATA. She's fantastic. She does a great job. I feel like they got us all on a call pretty quickly to see what was going on, understand the situation, understand kind of the history of what was going on and how we got here, or how we had gotten there. And, that was helpful. She spoke with North Carolina and South Carolina local military ATs and their government representatives for the state associations trying to figure out, who we could talk to, senator, representative, anybody who would kind of go to bat for us up in Washington, and kind of find our person who would kind of champion the cause for us, which was really awesome. And then May, June was like kind of radio silent, and I felt pretty confident things were going to turn around. And then June kind of like rolled around, and I was like, I haven't heard anything, like nothing. And I'm like, we're kind of cutting down to the line here. And I was like, well, maybe I need to start looking for other things. Like, I don't know. And I applied for a few things, and then like I think I had an interview like at the end of June, and then literally the next week we picked up a new group, like our summer cycle for my battalion. And right before I was about to give my first brief, my strength coach was there with me, and he got a text from another strength coach who his wife is also on Fort Jackson, that we were getting to keep our job. They just made an announcement that they were retaining all the athletic trainers. And so that was super encouraging. I had like zero time to process it. It was like a super roller coaster emotional time, honestly. And it was hard for sure. And it was like relieving, but also like I wasn't like super excited. And it was like really, that was weird for me. I thought I'd be like relieved, because when I found out I wasn't losing my job the year prior, I was like, amazing. Like I could keep going. But I mean, I think it's just emotionally exhausting, and that one especially, where they were just like, we're just going to cut everybody. I think that was just especially difficult. And so it kind of like put me in a negative kind of mindset. And working for a contractor, they don't have a lot of control of whatever the government decides. And which it can be tough. And, that's the reality of it. They can only control so much. And, they were very forthcoming. They were always, they communicated what they could when they could. And, I appreciated that, even though sometimes that was frustrating and hard. But, I kind of made it through that cycle, and I was like, I think I just need to take a step away for a minute. And so I did. And, it's kind of true what they say is like, you let the things you love go, they'll come back in the way that, you'll come back to them if it's something you really love. And I think that's true of, I just needed some time to like kind of breathe. And like, that was a really stressful situation for, 8 months. And I think I needed a break. So I'm excited to go back. And I think that a few positive things that have happened towards the end of the time I was there, and then the time that I have been not there for not even 2 months. They changed us back over to personnel services, which is really important because they had moved us to non-personnel services in 2024, which means we had to have separate supervision. So technically, the PT who had been signing our notes within Genesis was not supposed to be signing our notes anymore. We should have had an outside doctor that was hired by our contractor to supervise us, and which was to a lot of people very silly, because we were like, how are they going to sign all of our notes? Because I think they hired one doctor, and he was super kind, cool dude. But we were all like, I don't think he hasn't worked with the military yet. He's like, it was just a very odd situation, honestly. But it made it very difficult because, when Fort Jackson was like, we want to keep you guys on, after they said they wanted to cut us all, they were like, we have to keep you, like, y'all are essential to the mission of basic combat training. We need you. The whole assessment that made it difficult for them to hire us outside of, if H2F got rid of us and make us, get another separate contracting company previous to when H2F was there, was that we were now non-personnel. So we, they would have to hire a doctor too, which costs a lot of money. And so I was like, they're already under a constrained budget. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, I was realistic about that situation. I was like, that's not going to happen. But they changed us back to personnel services, I think right before or right after I left Fort Jackson, for my little hiatus. And, which is really encouraging, because that also moves us towards being privileged within, the DHA, and Genesis. So we're become privileged providers within their system. So, we're not just some like floating thing for them. And we can sign our own notes, which makes it helpful and order different services. So kind of moving us up in the rank of being able to order imaging, I think order medications that are not like over the counter stuff. But I think that was like really encouraging. They're still moving towards privileging us, I believe, in the system. I'm not 100% sure. When I get back, I'll find out what that really is entailing right now. And then the last kind of encouraging thing that I really made me feel better about going back was they are adding back the position that they took away in brigade, which is super important. For us, that was a very difficult cut, especially in the 193rd. I know that at OSET units, this was also particularly difficult. So at Fort Benning, 4 athletic trainers covering 5 basic combat training battalions is extremely, okay, I wouldn't say extremely difficult. It's just not the type of care you want to do. It's not like covering, like, it's like covering PRN at a high school every week for 10 weeks for 4 days a week. And it's a different person every day. And it's just like what you see at a high school when there's a PRN person there for how many ever weeks, and then a different person, and then a different person. Like, there's not trust between the athletic trainer and command team, the athletic trainer and drill sergeant. Like, it makes it so much more difficult to do your job and feel good about it, because you're not able to give the care and have the relationships that I think for athletic trainers is really important. And I think what levels us up as providers, honestly, because we're so ingrained within, a school, or for me, in a unit. And it makes a huge difference when you have buy-in from your people and they know you and they know the kind of provider that you are, and what your aim is. And when they don't know that and they don't know you, things that you recommend and things that you want don't go that far. And so I think that makes it particularly frustrating, and it's exhausting. And, we had been covering down at another battalion for the better part of a year. And I was like, is this ever going to end? Like, this is a lot to do. And in the 165th, the other brigade on Fort Jackson, they have 4 basic combat training units. So it didn't necessarily affect them like it did us. Did they lose a person? Yes. And that was like not fun at all. But they also were covering FSPC, which is essentially, if there's 2 different kind of aspects of it, if you didn't pass the ASVAB or if you need to lose weight before entering basic combat training. And that they decided they could, they wanted to do BCT only on that side, and that's what they did. But for the 193rd, that was a huge challenge for us to have to do that. And then at the same time, still be at our own battalion, having to cover and do everything on 4 days instead of 5. And you just don't have as much time that you want to be able to do the things at your battalion, because on the day that we were going to the one that was uncovered, we didn't belong to our battalion that day. So we couldn't really like do anything, which, it was a boundary that's healthy, but it's also frustrating because you're like, I can't do everything I want to do with my battalion in 4 days. And it just puts a lot of constraints on like what you can and can't do, which I think was challenging. But that was encouraging to see that they're going to add those positions back. So we'll be back fully staffed. I don't know exactly when, but that is encouraging that they are doing that. I think they got a lot of feedback from people between athletic trainers and, brigade and post commanders of like, this is important. We really like need the athletic trainers and what they do and what they offer. So, we want them back. And so, which is encouraging. I mean, I felt like at Fort Jackson, it was like panic when they were going to get rid of us. They were like, what are we going to do? Like, and when the Secretary of the Army came, this is like a funny story, but a sweet story, honestly. One of my drill sergeants who I helped a lot, he was such a good dude, and he, I think there was like a group of them that got to meet with the Secretary of the Army, and he was like, my athletic trainer was the only one who helped me. He's like, I went to PT up at Moncrief, which is like the hospital on post, and he's like, I went to PT at the Spark, but MacKenzie was the only one who really took the time to help me and got me better. And I actually am better because of what she's told me to do and what I'm continuing to do because she told me to do it. And the Secretary of the Army was like, trust me, we hear you. Like, we have heard this at every installation we have been to thus far, that the athletic trainers are a very important piece of their mission and what they are doing. And I was like, wow, I was like, that's amazing. Like, I was just like so touched that he said that, like, with such like conviction, and to the Secretary of the Army, and gave that feedback. And he was not the only one who said something as well. There was other drill sergeants who spoke up for their athletic trainers, which I just thought was like really that was just so like important to me. I was like, and I didn't ask him to do that. That was not something, I didn't even know he was going to meet him. So, I mean, I think it just speaks to the level of like what we do really matters, and the people that we care for who have a voice and are able to voice that to somebody in leadership that can do something about it, speaks volumes, I think, to what athletic trainers' utility is in the Army and in H2F.
Yeah. So I heard through the grapevine that this contract is only through about 2027 at the current moment. With the contracts, the contractors, with what happened this last year, was it really just the title that really messed up the contracts? Were there other holes that were possibly in the mix that caused this lapse? I guess looking forward, what can these contracts, or what do these contracts need to better secure your guys' jobs at the military setting? And with that contract possibly ending in 2027 or just being renewed, is that what the 2027 date is looking towards? I'm just trying to learn more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, the contracting world, if you're not in it, I mean, it's hard to understand. I'm still a novice in it. I'm still learning. So, I mean, there's probably people who are going to correct me on things that I'm going to say, and that's okay. But essentially, so the current contract for our contractor is up in 2027. So It will be up for rebid come 2027. So other contracting companies who contract athletic trainers to the military will have the opportunity to present a bid to the government, and they can present their case of why they should be the contractor of athletic trainers and not our current contractor. And I know the strength and conditioning coaches have had multiple issues with this in the past few years of they've gotten a new contractor, there's been appeals, it's stressful. I feel bad for my guy Nick. He's sometimes been super stressed. I mean, the strength and conditioning coach, I'm like, dang. I mean, sometimes they got it worse than us. I will say that. Sometimes it's tough for them. But they will be, that's where they'll be. But I think, to the other part of your question, I mean, I think that's a two-part thing. One, I think the initial issue when they were going to cut us all was not necessarily a contractor issue. It was, partially, I think, like a funding issue, partially the main reason that was stated in the email that was leaked was that we are not privileged providers within the DHA. So we're not our own entity. We technically aren't making the Army money. So we aren't charging under us for a encounter that goes under the physical therapist. So to the Army, just like in a lot of other structures, we don't make them money. The money for TRICARE doesn't move through us. So I think that was a big part of the issue. And I think there's just some opinions higher up that don't necessarily like athletic trainers. That's kind of the rumor I've heard. And that is what it is. I think there's a degree of that's changing, I hope. But I think as a whole, like, we all want to work together. We all want to do the best thing for people, and if we want to move forward. But there's always competition between healthcare providers, and who can do what and why they're doing this. And it's like, I'm not profiting any more than a PA or a physical therapist, or I'm getting paid the same amount that I was for my contractor, whether I'm ordering an X-ray or I'm not, or the encounter gets charged through me or not. It doesn't impact me And so I think it's like, to me, I'm like, why does it matter? We're all trying to care for soldiers better. So I think that was like the bigger part of the problem of why we were getting cut, because we're not moving money in their eyes. Second part is data collection. The way that we're documenting and or collecting data is not consistent across the board. At the basic training level, they are not in DEERS, which is the system that tracks profiles, which means what, if they're fully in duty or if they have limitations and things of that nature. So that creates a particular problem because, especially in basic combat training, because it's not tracked just how an active member is, because they're not loaded into that system quite yet. And I don't think, I didn't have access to change things in there either. So I was like, I can't do anything about that. And I wasn't instructed to. So like, that's just where it was, where that lands. But I think that has a big part to do with it, of data collection on the whole for us is very inconsistent. The only thing that we report to our contractor is the number of encounters we have per month with any trainees. And I think it's more specifically just trainees. Like, we don't even really report the numbers of cadre we're seeing. It's the verbiage around that has always been very confusing. And then, we report what kind of meetings we have and, any like education sessions we've done or physical sessions that we run or assist with. So the data for that, I feel like it's very incomplete. And I have voiced that to them, but to their, to their defense, they're like, this is all that the government asks us for. And like, okay, I'm like, but like, would it help if we had a little bit more detail to this? Because like, this number tells like a very like small picture of like what I'm actually doing on a day to day, and like, what does that number mean to them? It doesn't mean it means I'm seeing, a lot of people this month, but not a lot of people next month. Like, if I'm in cycle, that's a lot of people. If I'm out of cycle or if I'm on cycle break, that's not a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it kind of draws a really incomplete picture, but it's like, if, you're seeing how many encounters I'm having that day that are initial evaluations or re-evaluations, how many people are going on profile, if they're going on profile that makes them miss training, or if they're just on a modified profile where technically that's still a return to duty. It's just they can still do all the training events that are required of them to graduate, which is important, and that saves the government money at the end of the day. If a trainee doesn't miss a day of training, that saves the government $700 a day. So It's like, that's a lot of money when you add that all up. I think one cycle I did like a cost savings analysis, and it was like, I don't know, almost $450,000 for 10 weeks. And I'm like, that's one 10-week chunk of 4 that I have a year. So it's like, at the end of the day, that looks closer to $2 million a year for just my battalion. So I'm like, those are the things that the government's looking for, is ROI. What are we doing to keep soldiers in training, and what are we doing to reduce mortality down the road as far as what they're paying out in disability, which, soldiers will be like, I'm trying to get that 100%. And you're like, okay, but I don't want you to feel like you're 100%, like you're on 100% disability when you're like 30, but that's what they're looking for. And, I think it's hard the way that Genesis works. I've never done a data pull from there. I don't think it's probably the easiest thing to do, I would assume. And just the way that, we're told to, document and pick CPT codes or ICD-10 codes, I think sometimes can be, it's not consistent across the board. So I think it creates an issue, when it comes to doing a data pull, like there's not like too much consistency. So I think, data seems to be like the trigger word for everyone these days, because it's like, it just really is true. Like and it's not to say like we have to prove ourselves. It's just like, this is the proof. Like, this is me. Like, if you are like doing great things and they're being documented how they're supposed to, and you're collecting that and being able to make it a deliverable to somebody and show them someone who is not in our world, who is a post commander or who is working in the Pentagon or wherever, a deliverable that's easy for them to read, easy for them to understand, that says, hey, this is why athletic trainers are useful and this is what they're saving you. Like, that's what they want to know. And so I think if that becomes more consistent across the board, I think that would genuinely help us. And I think that's not just athletic trainers in the military setting. I think that's athletic trainers at secondary school, colleges, professional. I think that's what moves us forward as a profession, is being able to have a consistent data set that says, hey, like, this is what we're doing. We do great things. Like, I know athletic trainers save people lots of time and lots of money and, save them from an injury that, could get much worse. Like, we do that. And I think that's incredible. And have great relationships. But like, at the end of the day, if we don't have something that shows that in a deliverable, like, we're gonna miss the boat, because that's what everyone's always going to be looking for, is what's the return on their investment.
When looking at the analytics that you're collecting, is that personally the standard that you've put, or is it the contractor, military? I guess if we try to standardize the collection of this data, where would it need to come from? I guess your employer has a list of responsibilities, but it seems that they haven't really set a standard in that aspect. Would the military need to request that from the contractor to put into the responsibilities of the athletic trainers working on their base? Or where do you see that going? Where can we try to get that standardization implemented?
I think it's a both and. I think right now, I think there's been kind of a spreadsheet that we use that has been used for a while, that has, pivot tables, pivot charts, that kind of aggregate some of that data that I was talking about, as far as profiles and, any type of taping or DME or whatever that's being given out, days on profile, things of that nature, that we, have tinkered with, and I'm still trying to tinker with, to make it more accessible and easier to fill out, and like all these things. And, so I think there's like a personal aspect to it. If you're passionate about it, like, you're going to work on it. And, it's something I always want to make it easier for myself and for my coworkers. So, I'll be like, because they don't have to use that. It's not a requirement. But if it makes it easier for us to, put things on our car slides, our end of the cycle, like review slides and stuff, then I'm going to send that. I'll be like, hey, like, if you want to use it, use it. If you don't, you don't. But I think, to a degree, I mean, like, when I had brought up to the contractor months ago, like, hey, like, the data is just not dataing as far as helping us out right now, because it doesn't feel like it's helping us right now.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't have an issue being honest. I mean, I said it professionally, I was like, is there anything else we can give you that makes this better? Because, like, right now, it doesn't seem like it's helping us. And, they were talking about how, they have been wanting to have their data analytics kind of people that work with them do more. But they've been, really having to manage the roller coaster of, we're reducing force, now we're cutting all the athletic, they've been on the same, roller coaster, in a sense of, they are having to adjust to the punches just as quickly as we are, and haven't been able to necessarily catch up, because, they're losing people, they're having to try to hire people, and, all those things, and haven't been able to really dig in onto what data analytics would mean and what data they can and should collect, I think, for us to present to the government, that would be more than the minimum standard of what they've been at. That's my understanding of what they expressed to me.
Yeah. So if somebody was looking to enter the military athletic training setting, what advice would you give them to be better prepared for that setting, and what can they expect?
A few things. I think one, be prepared to be uncomfortable. I think you go into the setting, and it is vastly different than traditional athletic training, in the sense of the structure, the discipline, what people are being asked to do, what the standard soldiers are held to, and their ever-changing schedule. Like, you think a practice getting canceled is a crazy thing? Like, just wait. There's just so many things that change so fast, and you just have to adjust and be willing to be flexible and not get so frustrated, because genuinely it is out of their control. As far as trainees and cadre go, like, sometimes it's just out of their control. And so I think being willing to be really flexible and have a lot of grace for their schedule, because it's like I said, if you get mad about a practice getting canceled and they didn't tell you, just prepare yourself. But that also comes with getting to know people, and they'll let you know, like, as soon as they can, which is helpful. But sometimes it's going to slip their mind because, like, they've got a lot of stuff to do. So I would just be prepared for that. Two, I would just educate yourself on government contracting versus being a GS employee. They think there's pluses and minuses to either route. Being on a, being a federal employee, a civilian, as opposed to a contractor, is different. And contracting world can be just as unpredictable as GS world. If there's a government shutdown, you're not working. As a contractor, I'm still working and I still get paid. So
Yeah.
like, there's pluses and minuses to both. But I think you have to do your research. You're free to reach out to me if you ever have questions about that. I can give you what I do know, or point you to people who do know, because I'm in a Doctor of Athletic Training program at Moravian. There's a military athletic trainers little group me, and we all communicate pretty consistently, or whenever we hear news about something, which is helpful. And so we're happy to share with anybody who's interested in this field, because I think if you get into it and you're very passionate about, like, if you get into it, I don't know, I think it would be hard not to fall in love with it, but that's just me because I do love it. And I really enjoy what I do. And yeah, I think other disclaimer I will give, because, I think that it is important. I saw another athletic trainer speak to this on LinkedIn, because it is true. If you are triggered by, self-harm or suicide, or have suicidal ideation, I would just be very careful. I would just go in with your eyes wide open. That is a more common than you want it to be problem in the military right now. It's extremely difficult. I had a soldier take their life 2 weeks ago, and it's just something nobody prepares you for. And it's just, there's no way to explain it. I'm still grieving that. And, the people who show up for you, people show up for you, and people know that it's hard. And I have people from Fort Jackson reaching out to me at least once a week to ask how I'm doing, which it just shows you how much of a family it is, like, because when things like that happen, they're there for you. But I would just be very aware of that going into it, because I think some people have gone into this setting and not really known how common that is, which is extremely sad, and extremely, it's one of my pain points, I think, of how the government supports our soldiers. And, I think it's an ever changing field where, I read a study the other day of non-combat associated, like, suicide, and what factors contribute to that. And it's like, I'm glad that got published. And it's like, we're not going to leave people who, aren't necessarily in an active, war zone or coming back from that in the dark, where, they're working day to day. But I would give that cautious disclosure in that of, that's something you may encounter. But to end on a positive note of something you should look forward to is you will you will have some of the greatest relationships you'll ever find with cadre you're working with, or trainees if you go more that route. and the other athletic trainers if you choose to. I think it takes some time and investment to get used to the humor of military members and to be yourself and just enjoy what they're doing and get in there. And they love to see you do stuff with them. Like they genuinely do. I mean, I've always felt that way, even when I worked in a traditional setting, that, you know, you got to be able to do what your athletes do. And I'm not going to ask them to do anything I have not done. And so, you know, being able to run 2 miles straight, being able to deadlift, being able to do different components in the AFP, being able to ruck with them, they think that's like the best thing when I go on rucks with them. There's 3 different ones throughout the cycle that are graduation requirements. And the last one is a nighttime 10-mile ruck back to the battalion. And they love when I go on that. They think that's like the coolest thing. And they just love, I mean, the trainees love it, but also the drill sergeants, I think, have a lot of respect for that because it's kind of like willing to suffer with them a little bit. I don't stay in the field because personally, I'm like, I'm a contractor. I don't have to do that. I'm like, I'm going to go sleep in my bed. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. But they do love to see you participate in what they're doing because I think it just shows that you're willing to get uncomfortable and try new things. And that you're just willing to be with them and like spend the time, even when it might be physically demanding, when you're tired and whatever. But I think they really appreciate that. And, you know, I think that's created a lot of really good relationships, with people I work with and, you know, has given them an opportunity to have some respect for me in a way that, you know, I think if I hadn't done those things, I don't think I'd be on the same kind of like wavelength with them as I am now. And just, I mean, I just go to bat for them and like, you know, I'm like, hey, like we're going to try, you know, this thing. And if it doesn't work, you know, we won't do it anymore. But, you know, that big thing was having them wear their personal shoes. Because that was like, they're like, well, the shoes, their issue, the shoes. I mean, drill sergeants were like, they have to wear the issued shoes. I'm like, okay, but listen, they're not that great and they're not very supportive. So like, I hear what you're saying, but like, also, I don't want them to get injured because that's the trend. And I collected data on that and I can show you on a PowerPoint, like, this is a problem. So it's not like random. And once I did that, they were like, yeah, that's great. Like, let's do it. So I think they're open to the things. I think sometimes it just takes some time to get them on your side. And there's going to be some stubborn people who you're not going to change their mind, and that's okay. But I think as long as you can show your leadership, you know, you care and that you want the best for your soldiers and you want the best for their unit, then like you're solid. But I think you just got to you have to get bought into their process so they'll buy into your process. Because if you don't buy into what they're doing, then they're not going to buy into anything that you have to say if you're not willing to kind of get a little dirty, I guess, in a sense. So, but overall, I mean, like, I love it. I think it's a great setting to be in. It's still, I think, one where athletic trainers have a lot of room to grow, and it excites me to see students excited about it. When I was at Moravian over the summer for our summer institute, there was 2 or 3 students who were interested in the military setting kind of right off the bat. And I'm like, okay, I was like, I wasn't like interested in this when I was an undergrad, but I think it's awesome. I think it's really great that there's interest at such a young age. And, you know, I told them, I said, it is important. Go get you some traditional athletic training experience. Be in a traditional setting, get confident in what you're doing, you know, build some leadership skills, build that confidence that you're sure what you're saying is what you're saying. And then come to this, because this is not like traditional athletic training. And, you know, if you're not like, confident enough, they will figure that out real fast.
So we hit on a lot of topics today. Was there anything else that you felt like was missing or needed to hit on before we close out?
I don't think so. I think we got it. We've got a lot of stuff. We got through a lot of things.
I know. I think you painted a really good picture. And I mean, I think the biggest thing is don't be scared about that 2027 date that keeps getting thrown out because that's just a renewal and that happens all the time. And I think you guys are working to get a better classification to secure that job and the job security for the military setting too. So, I mean, from right now in November 2025, I think it's on a good track to still be there in the future. So that's great to hear. And I do want to throw it out to the NATA and Diana for all the work that she did on this. I mean,
Seriously.
I think people see it that it's reactive, but that's kind of what NATA is there for, is to help support the athletic trainers when things happen. It's always hard, like we say in athletic training, if we're trying to prevent things, are we really preventing it? Like, we really don't have good data points on that. It's just putting in the work beforehand and being there and being ready for whatever happens.
Yeah, I would like to say, I mean, a huge thank you to Diana and everybody on the government affairs team. I mean, y'all have really gone after it for us. And I would like to thank you on behalf of all the athletic trainers whose jobs you saved and the ones that we're getting back. And I think that that's really important. And I would agree with that. I think, people like to be very critical of the NATA and, all that. But, there's a lot of parties in play of how our education is done and, how decisions are made. And at the end of the day, I mean, the NATA, like you said, is going to react to things like that. And I'm glad that they did. I mean, I don't know if I wasn't expecting it, but I don't think I was expecting it to the degree that they did mobilize. And I think that was like extremely humbling, number one, and number two. I was just have a lot of gratitude for them because they didn't, have to do it that way or go all in like they did. And they did do that. And, I'm grateful for it because they know that it's important. Just like athletic trainers, we felt a big sense of why we're important. Like we are not the main thing, but we are helping these people and making healthcare better for them and more accessible at the unit. And I think, I'm grateful for them. So pay your dues, please. If you're not a member, I'm a member. I need to pay my dues still, but for this next year. But consider being a member of NATA. Now you get a bunch. I mean, you like unlimited free CEUs now, which is a huge benefit for members. And I mean, genuinely, I saw a infographic of, the difference of how much the APTA pays for lobbying and how much the NATA has to pay for lobbying. And the difference is like very, very large, like by more than 50%. So it's like, we cannot complain about a lot of things if we don't fund them the way that we want to see them funded. And, they can only do so much with what they're provided. And I think they're doing an excellent job at that. So I would say if you're not a member, consider it. It benefits nationally and it benefits your state association as well. And I don't know, I'm very interested to see a lot of things coming in the next year. And this is off topic, but I mean, APTA going for, primary care provider status is very interesting to me. I'm like, I wonder if the NATA's got something on the burner for that because I've heard some whispers about that. Not necessarily that particularly, but just seeing physical therapists and athletic trainers in a very similar light, just because we do have very similar capabilities. And we do learn primary care with a part of our education, literally. So I'm like, that makes total sense for us to be classified that way as well. And would help a lot of like rural communities and urgent cares to have athletic trainers as primary care providers, especially for the orthopedic injuries. So it saves them a lot of money. But yeah, I think it's just really interesting time within the healthcare field, things changing with education and how we're classified. I think that NATA is going to do the best to try to help us as a profession move forward. But that only happens when there's voices to contribute to that and if you got something to back it up. So that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah. And at the NATA level, it takes a bit of momentum to move a mountain of all 50 states, where even just at your local level, you can see things move much faster. So just getting involved at the other levels and at the NAT is really important for progressing that profession of athletic training. So, well, thank you so much, MacKenzie, for being on. You're always welcome back. Let me know when you want to talk about something else. I'm always open. So congratulations on returning back to your job, and I hope it goes swimmingly and we strengthen those bonds within the military setting for the future.
Thanks so much, Shelby. I'm so glad I could come on today.
Yeah, no problem.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daly LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.